We're back with Socially Distant Studio Visit number 21 in our ongoing series, where we talk to artists from Hallwall's past during these weird pandemic times to see how they're doing and what they're doing, wherever they may be. And today we're talking to New York artist David Kramer from his home in Manhattan. David exhibited at Hallwall's way back in the halcyon days of 2001. Although he's also been included in several of our annual auctions over the last several years. And David, it's really good to see you. And let me
curated the show.
What's that?
We curated a show there, B-List.
Oh my God, we did. In 2003, David and I spent a long time curating an exhibition of Brooklyn artists called B-List. I shouldn't have forgot that because I remember that so fondly, and it's now I'm being flooded with memories of that show. David, how are you doing?
Well, I'm doing all right, John. I mean, I heard that Buffalo opened up today. How's that treating you? Has it changed your life?
Well, you know, I've told other people that, you know, Buffalo is unlike New York, which is a highly populated and dense urban environment. Through most of the time, although I've spent most of the time at home, as most people have, when I've gone out to the grocery store and that, it just seems like a normal Sunday or something. It doesn't, it hasn't looked all that much different. And I don't know, you know, it's sort of weird what's opened up. I mean, retail curbside pickup, which is like, I guess if you know what you're buying, makes sense. But we're obviously anxious to get back to work, but arts organizations are in phase 4 of
right.
So we have to still wait a little while. But
well, you know, New York is like, I mean, to get back to your question and just to segue, like Chelsea, New York, I'm fine, and Chelsea, New York feels like it felt in like the 90s or the late 80s. It's like not so densely populated, and like when you're walking down the street and you see someone on the street coming your way, you cross the street quickly to get out of their way. I mean, it's like the old days, but obviously it's been really, I mean, it's less so this week, last week, but it's been kind of eerie and creepy because things were really bad here, according to the news. And fortunately for me and just about everyone I know, I've really have passed through rather unscathed, hunkering down here at home. Lots of sleep deprivation. I keep on having like nightmares. That seems to be the, you know, those anxiety nightmares where you can't get to some place. You can't get to where you were supposed to be. That's what wakes me up every night. So
that sounds like a really appropriate shared anxiety that we all feel right now.
Yeah.
I haven't been having nightmares. I've been having weird dreams, but yeah, still. So how do you see social distancing happening in your neighborhood? Is it, are people adhering to it? Is it, does it look like, because here it's sort of like, you know, people are a little concerned with the warm weather, that people seem to be out and about without masks and pretending like it's, you know, we're over some kind of hump.
Everybody wears a mask in New York by and large. I mean, obviously you see the occasional person who doesn't, but you know, the problem with New York, as I see it, is that we're really a very social kind of society here, and I'm used to going out to openings, seeing people I know on the subway, seeing people in bars, seeing people. So none of that is taking place. There's like, I've been home almost entirely until the last week or so, and I'd go out for a few minutes, but now as the weather's getting nice, I go down to the rivers, the East River or the Hudson River, to kind of get to where there's open space. And of course, when you get down where there's open space, it's there's too many people. It's kind of crazy, and it's a little alarming. I actually last week and this week, both weeks, I went out to my studio on a bicycle in Brooklyn both times. So I've been out there just 4 times since March, and my studio's in Williamsburg, and that is really strange. Like I was in Williamsburg last Friday, and it was a really beautiful day. And Williamsburg was oddly teeming with people in a way that was, really alarming to me, kind of frightening. The people are wearing masks, but they're very close to each other. I mean, there's just a lot of people hanging out and buying drinks at tables and walking around with cocktails. And, it's sort of like that group over there in that neighborhood that is the way it has turned out over the last few years has turned into a real kind of social center. So those people don't seem to care as much or have the same fear that I have. So I have I'm worried about this. I'm always worried about bringing something home to my wife or whatever. So, I don't go anywhere. It's like we have to share in this mutual kind of agreement that we're just going to not have contact with anyone other than going to the grocery store. So that's
Now, do you find there being a kind of psychological weirdness to that, in the sense that part of what living in New York is about, and part of, I'm sure, what's kept you in New York as a New Yorker, is a love of the teeming masses and a love of having a dense place where lots of people congregate, and there's always stuff going on. I mean, is it feel kind of weird mentally to suddenly be really apprehensive toward that?
Well,
Normally.
I'm actually really comfortable with the solitude and being alone. That's actually more in my wheelhouse. But the thing I always love about New York is I can like go to an opening and run into a dozen friends, and that would be my social life. Or go from an opening to a bar afterwards where it was very casual and I never had to make any kind of plans, because I've never been very good at that aspect of it. And I subscribe to the Yogi Berra theory. Nobody goes there. It's too popular. It's like, it's, but once the places get too popular, I stay away from them. They're no longer in my interest. But I am going to miss tremendously both going to openings and taking the subway and getting around the city with absolute like freedom at all hours of the day and night. And now, I ride a bicycle everywhere because it allows me my bubble. But now I'm tethered to a bicycle, so it's a little different. Yeah, I really am going to miss. I don't know how the art world is going to pick up where it left off. I don't know how we're going to go have openings. I don't know. I had a friend of mine. I was talking to a gallery owner that I'm friends with, and I saw him. We've been in contact, but I saw him last at Armory, which was in March, and he got COVID afterwards, and he thinks he got it during the Armory, and he's fine. He recovered absolutely fine, but this is like the atmosphere of the idea of having an opening is to have tons of people. That is what it's all about, is like showing that there's support and fandom and friendships, and that is really going to be hard to replace in any other means other than showing up. So I don't know how we're going to get back to normal.
It's a real quandary. I mean, we live in this and work in this field that relies on that sense of community and collegiality, and I'm sure there's more than a few of us that don't want to give that up and feel that it's kind of like when they would say, if you behave a certain way, the terrorists win. Well, if we behave in certain ways, we let the virus win. But there's also a matter of public safety, and it's really there's a real friction there, because we're in a field that relies so heavily on, I mean, what's a gallery without an opening,
Right, exactly. I mean, like that was always, I always said like the best way to judge if you had a good show was to have a really good opening, maybe get some press and maybe get some sales. Well, right now sales are kind of off the table because the economy is in the toilet and there's no opening. And so, you know, I mean, it's like, I'm going to miss that a lot. I'm going to miss seeing friends in that kind of a context in a big way. And I don't know when we're going to get back to that because, you know, until we have some kind of, wearing a mask is very nice and all, and everybody does it and it helps. But I still don't want to get into a crowded room with a lot of people at all. In fact, when I go to the supermarket, I don't even like walking down the aisle with someone else in the same aisle with me. So, you
Yeah,
know, it's very strange. It's very antithetical to life in New York. And, you know, half of New York is left, it seems. When you walk around in the evening, there are no lights on in the luxury buildings. Everybody's gone. So, you know, it's
does it make
strange.
bike riding easier? Is there less
Oh
traffic?
yeah, I mean, you know, certainly there's far less cars on the road, you know, and like when I walk down to the West Side Highway, I don't wait for the light to change. I can walk out into the West Side Highway without being hit by a car. I mean, it's amazing how, you know, New York really does feel vacant in a lot of ways. It feels like it does on Thanksgiving Day or Christmas Day. But in general, it really does feel like it did in the 90s, like it just, or in the 80s when I first moved here, or when I, you know, was growing up. And people just weren't hanging out. There wasn't a density of people, you know. There had become, New York had become very dense with people, very comfortable in big crowds, and that wasn't always the way it was. So, but you know, I'm a lifelong New Yorker, really. So I don't really know where else to go. I don't have another plan B right now. So
Well, let's. I want to jump back in time just a little bit to a pre-pandemic moment that we can talk about for a bit because it's kind of uh, funny and fun and interesting and unique. And that is, you know, prior to all of this coming down, you had gone through this period where you were involved in a collaboration with the French fashion design company Celine, where some of the words and phrases from your artworks, like "My Own Worst Enemy," "There Is No Irony Here," I have nostalgia for things I've probably never known, were appropriated or reappropriated and used on T-shirts and jackets and accessories like handbags. You know, for a high-end retailer, I mean, there's got to
it's
be.
not so long ago because actually, so right now is the season. I last June they had a runway show which I went to Paris for the release of this line, but that was for the spring summer 2020 collection. So my collection, my collaboration with Celine is now. So I used to complain, you know, John, you know me for a long time. I used to complain all the time that I wasn't getting enough attention. Now I'm complaining I'm getting attention at the wrong time. It's really unfair.
But how did it
This
all?
is really not, I mean, this is the moment that that stuff is really in the stores and really happening. So it's rather, well, it was always rather ironic that I got involved with the fashion world. And now it's really ironic that I'm involved in the fashion world during a pandemic and the second coming of the Great Depression. So,
Well, how did the whole project even begin? Like, what was the genesis of it?
well, I was approached by them, by Eddie, who is the creative. Eddie Slimane is the creative head of Celine. He's the guy there. But they approached me through seeing my work at art fairs, and I guess followed me for a while, checked out my Instagram and stuff. And so they approached me. It was completely out of the blue. But once we started working together, I found out that there was this long knowledge of my work. And it was really quite bizarre because I tend to write slogans, I tend to write text that is somewhat self-deprecating, somewhat self-reflective, although I always wanted to work on a universal level. I always feel like those phrases, like I have nostalgia for things I've probably never known, is something I wrote about, you know, because I was making art away from home. I was in Switzerland doing this residency at the time. And I was just like, you know, I was thinking about things like nostalgia while I was drawing a picture, painting a picture out of an old Playboy, German Playboy magazine that I found in a thrift store. Anyway, the long and short of it is that kind of a phrase have other meanings that go outward into the world, and that's what I like about using words. But I never would have pictured that on a T-shirt from a high-end fashion designer. It was quite remarkable, really surprising, and I've been really amazed by the amount of encouragement and acceptance and love for the work that I did with this line. Actually, it's been really quite positive.
It's interesting because the ones I've seen, and I have zero knowledge of what Celine's products are usually like, but the ones I've seen are, I don't want to call them plain, but they're direct. Like the T-shirts are like a basic T-shirt. The handbag is very simple and direct. Like they're not overly extravagant items, which is
well, they made Eddie used some of the phrases in multiple contexts. So there were bags and T-shirts that say things, and then there's also T-shirts and purses and bags that have my actual paintings with those phrases on them as well. So they exist in multiple different, in a variety of different products that they put out there. But they do use the images and they do use the text without the images. When we were first talking about this project, I was a little bit concerned about them lifting the words off of my paintings, that I would somehow lose the proprietorship, the ownership, the copyright, so to speak, of my own work. But they've been really fantastic about sharing my name whenever, like if you look on their website, it's called the David Kramer Collection. So they were very, very, I guess, generous or, you know, or respectful of my work. So, but yes, a lot of the things have come onto T-shirts just with those words stripped away, which is kind of funny because, you know my work, John. I was painting out of Playboy magazines and fashion magazines and Life magazines and Look magazines, and always I was looking for these lifestyle kind of settings or these lifestyle kind of imagery that I would try to paint or draw, and then I would tag it with my text. And I guess what's happening and the way that they saw it at Celine was, well, the text will exist on a scene that is being lived. So it's kind of added all of this 3 dimension to my work. So I kind of like, that's how I view it, especially when I went to the fashion show in Paris and I saw people walking down a runway wearing this, you know, this text on their shirts. At first I was kind of alarmed by it, but then I realized that that was really like in motion happening, like a painting. Like I could only have drawn a fashion show in the past, and now here I got to exist in one. So it's pretty, and it's pretty funny, like you had said about yourself. I never pictured myself as someone in the fashion world or even concerned with it. I, of course, pay attention to, I've noticed that Jeff Koons made bags, that Louis Vuitton bags that had different, you know, Mona Lisa on it and different things. I noticed that Raymond Pettibone has made bags for Dior or T-shirts for Dior, but I never really thought that I would be in this world, and here I am. So it's pretty exciting.
So is the phrase they're using is "there is no irony here"? Should the phrase be "there is nothing but irony here"?
There is no irony here. Yeah, exactly. It is only ironic that the guy who buys his T-shirts at Kmart is my black T-shirt collection, my Hanes T-shirt collection is now getting to make $400 t-shirts for Celine. So.
I was going to ask you. So it is literally a $400 t-shirt.
Yeah, it's funny. I mean, it is really odd. And as I said about the irony of this before about the situation, it is ironic that I am involved in this sort of luxury brand world right now at this moment of great unemployment and illness and all the other things that are going on right now. You know, this is really the strangest time. It doesn't, you know, if it were something that I had actually been striving for and living through, this sort of life of fast times or high rolling kind of existence as an artist, I might be kind of more upset by this sort of timing, but I'm actually I can't do anything about it. I'm living with it. And to fight another battle tomorrow, it just gave me an opportunity, much more opportunities for the future, which is all I could really hope for right now. So.
Yeah, how do you think this might roll forward as a, what
well,
springboard into?
I mean, who knows? I mean, I certainly, it's a nice feather in my cap. Like I said to you before, and I hate to keep repeating myself, but you know, I used to complain all the time that I wasn't getting enough attention. So now I'm getting a lot of attention. So I think that helps in the art world. Like I was saying also before about how openings are about people showing up. I mean, all of this is just like the art world is always, in a way, feeds off of itself and success and notoriety. And, and now the object for me is to reach for high standards, maintain, reach for higher standards, go for bigger goals. So this is a really great opportunity that happened, and I hope that it will lead to more. So,
I mean, as crazy as it sounds, as we're talking, and I'm thinking about your paintings, I'm thinking, a lot of those paintings would look good on shower curtains. Like that's kind of like a really interesting kind of tableau for it. The curtain's closed when you're not using it. You see the work. I mean,
here, I'll show you what I'm working on now, because it's funny. I have to stand up, but I have a few of these things I'll show you. But I'm making these hook rugs right now. I've been really into making hook rugs. I've started this project a while ago, but I got really into it. And now when you mentioned shower curtains, I immediately thought bath mats. That was so I have to walk around, but I have one on the floor, which I'll show you, and I'll show you a few of them. But so hook rugging is like this 70s kind of hobby that housewives would do, I guess. So I made this one since I've been home. Can you see it?
Yep.
Because I can't see with my phone exactly what I'm showing you. So you can see it's on burlap. I'm going to stretch it round, and it's all this yarn pulled through. And this one says, "I like it when it's real." And then I'll show you, let me just show you quickly. I'll spread out a couple more. Another one. They're pretty big, so I'm going to put out one at a time.
Well, while you're doing that, I wanted to say that, it's interesting because you do a lot of painting and drawing, and that's a good pastime or a good way to pass your time during a quarantine. But hook rugging, this sort of craft-centric, material-based endeavor seems even more appropriate for this.
Yeah, I've been doing them on my kitchen table, so they're kind of funny. But the reason why I went to my studio for a couple of days is because I was really missing doing some painting. So I wanted to paint for a little while, but it was kind of getting a little desperate. But here, this one, I went to a similar motif, but this one is says, "There is no irony here." And it's another sunset painting with a silhouette of a beach house.
It's a lot of
So,
labor. How
and
long does it take you to do one?
I go crazy with them. I have one more I'll show you. So I've been home since mid-March, and I've made 3 of these, plus some other drawings and works on paper. Here's one more. So this one is, I'm going to stretch these as round on round stretcher bars at some point. So this one says, none of this is true. Can you see that?
Yeah, they look great.
So I'm calling them my Mar-a-Lago sunsets. That's the. That's what they're all about. They're all these acidy kind of bright, kind of Mar-a-Lago sunsets. That's what I'm calling them.
Well, it's funny with the hook rugs that I notice when you post images of them that it can't necessarily be easy to do this, but you manage to come very close to what your palette is in your paintings and drawings in terms of color.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. I mean, I am, someone recently sent me a box of, they were doing their own home cleaning during this epidemic. And they came across their old giant, like 2 foot by 2 foot cube box of supplies for their work. And they just were like, I'm going to get rid of this. And I got all of this very high-end remnants of wool that I was supposed to, and I was like, whoa, no, I like the synthetic, crappy, bright colors that I get at Michael's. That's my palette is is really like that sort of bright, orangey and acidy, and I like the nylon-y synthetic colors because it does resemble more to my palette. And I like it also because there's something about painting for me where color tends to get muddier as you work on a painting. It's hard to get that sort of pop brightness. And with the hook rugging, it's just never muted. It's always really bright. And that's why I really love love this technique. So I love the way it looks. So each of these take maybe a couple of weeks for me to make them. I really just am very myopic when I'm working on them, and I just work, I sit here, Susan, my wife, is over in the other room, like she has her job still. She's working on her computer still remotely from home. And I'm over here in the kitchen table, and I work from, 9 to 4 o'clock in the afternoon all day, and just pounding through this 5 o'clock in the afternoon, just doing this. And if I was supposed to do a show in Paris in June with these. That was really what the project we were talking about for the show I had lined up with the gallery I work with in Paris. And I just went ahead and made these anyway, because I don't know when I'll have a show again. We don't know, who knows? So I just, I didn't want to, I wanted to view this COVID lockdown period in the most positive way I could. And for me, that meant working. So I feel kind of strangely at times about working while all of this is going on in the world. It's sort of tragic, but in a way I feel like the artist's job is to sort of be the note taker of what's going on and to sort of let it sift through their prism while it's happening. That's most of the greatest art that I like is present in the moment, that's why I like a lot of pop imagery. That's why I like, when I look back, I love Bruegel. I love the Giotto friezes. They all seem to capture real life as it's going on around you at the moment that it's happening. So that's what I hope to achieve with my Mar-a-Lago sunsets. It's what's going on in Trump Spring.
Even though hook rugging is very conducive to the kitchen table, you are an artist that, as far as I knew, went to your studio in Brooklyn if not daily, almost every day, and had that
Yeah.
kind of regular practice. I mean, how much do you miss that particular rhythm?
Well, I mean, from uh, from the from the middle of March when I came home until basically uh, the first week of May. Let's say today's 20th of May, until about the second week of May, I was totally fine with that, but I was getting the itch to go back there. Just because, like, I'm used to standing up while I work when I paint. I'm used to painting against a wall. I don't have that kind of a setup here. I've been at my kitchen table. I've been making drawings, and I've been painting on the table on a board that I have set on top of the table. Small, everything's smaller, which is also something that I don't love. I'd like to have a little more room to spread out. So I felt like I had finished the third rug, and I was like, I got to go over. I got to get out of here. So I went over to Brooklyn, but I'm actually thinking about another one in this series to start maybe next week or so. So I'm going to come back here and be at my table for as long as possible, because I really, as much as I love the whole studio practice so much, I'm getting a lot done here, and I really do feel like I don't feel so safe to go out yet. It's, as much as everyone's telling us we got to go out, we all should go out. I'm a little apprehensive. I'm nervous. So I just assume get things done in a protected cocoon right now. I'm fine
Now,
with that.
your son Martin is up in Canada in Montreal studying at Concordia University. How is he doing?
Well, he's doing quite well. He also is someone who seems very, thanks for asking. He's someone who also seems very adept at making, maybe because he was like an only child or something, but he's very good at being alone and by himself. And so the quarantine has kind of not really rocked his boat so much. At first, he was really angry and anxious because he had a film he was in the middle of, and the way they did their film program there in Concordia was they had editing suites that they had to all go to edit, and they shut down the editing suites. And so, like, instead of having like Adobe Premiere on their computers, they were all doing Avid. They had, this whole hardware that they used. Anyway, he couldn't finish his film, and he took it very personally. But since then, he's really kind of understood the gravity, the situation. He lives in a small, tiny apartment there, and he stays in it. He's taking classes. They just started summer school. He's taking classes online. Mostly, he's taking some literature classes because he's taking electives, because the film classes won't be happening again until they can all get back together in a group. So, but he's doing well. But as you probably know, Montreal is kind of like the hotspot of Canada right now. It's not doing great. And
And
he's keeping.
the border is closed. You
And
can't come here. You can't go there.
honestly, John, when this first came about, we made decisions. Like, we made a decision. Like, he made a decision. We asked him, "Do you want to stay there? What do you want to do?" And he said he preferred to stay there. And at that point, we were talking about 2 weeks, 14 days of 14 days turned into the end of the month, and then the end of the month turned into closing the border, and then boom, he's there. So, and at the time that they closed the border, or he could have come home, but New York was absolutely tragically exploding with COVID. So and Montreal seemed kind of safe at that point. So he made the decision to stay there. So he's handling it quite well. I think he's really growing up because of all of this. He went from being angry to being quite productive and good. He's doing well, thanks. But it is very weird. It's like I feel like he's like a draft dodger. He went up to Montreal, and we won't see him again until somebody gives us the reprieve that they can come home. So,
Until the war is over.
till the war is over, exactly. Exactly. So he gets pardoned. but he's doing all right. But that's it's interesting because the rest of Canada seems to be in under control, sort of doing much better than the United States, I think. So just Montreal is the problem.
Montreal, from my recollection of going there, I mean, I can remember being in Montreal one spring on the first nice day, which was like in April, early April. And it was like a weekend, like a Monday afternoon. And every outdoor patio was full. It was like nobody was working. Uh,
Yeah.
it's like a town where people love to be out.
He said that is a big problem. People are starting to come out as the weather has gotten nicer, and they don't have. This is one other fun fact, but in the premier of Montreal, of Quebec, is a rather conservative guy. I forgot his name offhand. I can't think of it, but he would not allow women to wear face masks because before because they were Muslim, and they banned it. So now, because of that, he's reluctant to make a mandate that everyone has to wear a face mask to cover their face because it contradicts his right-wing nut job policy. So in Montreal, people are not wearing masks. They're not Martin is, he wears one, he told us, and many people do, but it's not ubiquitous at all because of that. So, but the reason why apparently the reason why they're having a big rash outbreak is because in the northeast part of the city is a big French population who all work in nursing homes, and they all have part-time jobs, and they work in multiple nursing homes, and that has really spread the virus around this like petri dish amongst this group of people, and all the mass transit that they take to get to their various jobs, and all the nursing homes. And that seems to be where the outbreak is really centered in Montreal, not really where, and it seems centered there, but it is flaring up. It's quite bad there. So, and people are still going out. It's a very social place, as you know. So.
Well, I'm glad to hear that he's doing well. I'm glad to see that you're doing well. And I really want to thank you for taking some time out today to chat. It's been good to check in. It's good to see. It's always good to see you. So great to see you today. And
I hope that you do get to have a nice summer in Buffalo. Things open up there in a nice way.
I hope that we see each other in person again before too long.
Me too.
All
Thank
right.
you, John.
Thanks, David. Bye-bye. I prematurely ended our interview there, David, because I always like to ask everyone, even though we don't know what the next version of normal is, let's pretend that normal, whatever it is, returns. What's one of the first things, big or little, that you'd like to do when that happens?
Well, I've always wanted to go on a cruise. I think I'm going to take a I'd like to take a cruise up to like Nova Scotia and Newfoundland.
On a big old petri dish.
Yeah. No, I think honestly, one of the reasons why Martin wound up in Montreal is because we would go there a lot in the summers. I just love going there. The weather is just cooler. It's such a great place to be in the summer. And I really look forward to just getting in a car and driving up there and having it somehow, seeing the friends I have up there, going to Park Montreal and having, picnic or whatever. I really would love to not wear a face mask outside. That's, of course, like I said, I miss my social life in New York, the openings, just the casual running into familiar faces at bars, friends at bars, but I think just going to Montreal for like a picnic would be really pretty nice thing to do. So
It's a good answer. And now that was my last question. So
okay,
thank you again, David.
thanks.